Don't you give up now. The sun will soon be shining.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are streaming to our Thriving Singles community, and we're just sharing a bunch of stories, personal stories, and some testimonies of Christ. To tell you a little bit about why I'm wanting to do this. I just recently, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had a general conference. They do that every 6 months. So on these conferences, the leaders of the church share testimony and scripture, and just they build faith and they build hope. It's always so full of the Spirit. I just love watching conference. And so this last weekend when I was watching, I just had the thought that it would be so fun to get together with some others who would be willing to share their personal stories and maybe a quote or two from some of their favorite talks. So I'm here with a handful of people who have agreed to do this with me. Thank you guys so much for joining. My reason for wanting to do this is because I am just so filled with love and hope and light from the gospel of Jesus Christ. And last week when I was watching General Conference, the talks were just so full of all of these things. I have doubts, as anyone else does, and fears and temptations. And I have specific questions that I need answered. And so when I watch conference, I always get my answers, and I always get that renewed faith and hope. And I know that there are people who are struggling with these things as well, and they may not remember or know to turn to Christ. It is my belief that that is where all of our peace and comfort will come from, all of our guidance, all of our hope, and all of our just everything good in life comes from Christ and our Father in heaven who loves us more than anyone. So I just want to share and add my testimony to these people also, that Christ is love and he's light and he's truth. And well, that is what we will talk about tonight. I'm so grateful to you guys for being here. We're going to start with Brandy, Vega. She has agreed to come in even though she has a meeting. So anyway, Brandy, thank you so much for coming. I will start with you.
Having me, Sherry. I think that this is great. And hello and welcome to everyone. I appreciate the opportunity. I've been doing freelance on-call work for the LDS Church for about 19 years now. And I, like many of you, went through some hard times. I was single for a lot of years, and it's hard when life doesn't turn out the way that you think it's going to turn out. And I actually, I had been married twice. And I had been single for about 3.5 years, and I met someone and I fell madly in love, and we got married. And 11 months in, I found out that he had been having an affair, and it was just horrible. My life was tore upside down. And I'm giving you the backstory so you can appreciate my favorite talk. And I don't necessarily have a quote, but I would love for you guys to watch this talk. So I was feeling so discouraged, because I felt like I was doing everything I knew how. I was, a single mom. I had 2 daughters. I was working hard to set a good example. I was going to church. I was reading my scriptures. I was going to the temple. I was doing all these things. And I found myself completely devastated and heartbroken. And I was having a breakdown. This was about 3 or 4 months after I had found out about the affair and we had separated. And I felt like the biggest failure. Here I am, divorced 3 times. And I just felt like such a big failure. And waves of grief, if you guys have been through some of these hardships in life, they hit you. And I started crying in the parking lot. I was sitting outside of a Ross and I was just crying. And I was like, why is this happening to me? Why me? I don't deserve this. I deserve better. And while I was in my car by myself, having a complete meltdown, I heard a voice say, "Do you trust me?" And I was by myself and I thought, yes, I trust you. Do you trust me? And I thought about that for a minute. Well, why would I hear that? Why would I feel that? And I thought, yeah, I do. Well, I think I do. Well, I don't know. What does that mean? maybe I don't. I really don't know. And so I literally spent the next 3 days diving as deep as I could dive, trying to figure out what this was about. And as I researched, faith in the Lord, faith in Jesus, trusting in him, how to trust, I did a lot of research, and I found this talk called Trust in the Lord from Richard G. Scott in 1995. So I hope you guys will look this up, Trust in the Lord, Richard G. Scott, 1995. And I felt like this talk was written for me. And as I read through it, I was like so emotionally moved. And I realized one thing in there, that it said, you have to submit your will for his. And when I heard the word submit growing up, for me, that was like a dirty word. It was a very negative word. I remember my uncles talking about submitting, and it was in wrestling, and it means you got beat. It wasn't a good thing. It was like, oh, you lost. That's what submitting meant. And so I had always been strong, independent. I knew what I wanted in life. I'm a business owner. I'm very driven. And I discovered that I had never fully trusted in the Lord, because I had never submitted my will to his. And that was literally a turning point for me in my life. This was 8 years ago. I heard this. And once I realized that I had never submitted and completely trusted Christ to know what's best for me. We all have the puzzle piece, and we think that we know how it goes together, but he knows how it goes together. And I made a promise that day that I would submit my will to his and trust, even when it didn't make sense. And I started a nonprofit. I built a company. I adopted a baby through foster care as a single mother. I was a surrogate. I traveled the world. I did a lot of things, and things that would never make sense. But when you trust in the Lord, you move forward in faith, and you can't expect him to guide your footsteps if you're not willing to move your feet. And so when you're giving it all you've got, and you're giving the best you can give, and you don't understand why it's happening, don't say, why is this happening to me? Say, what am I supposed to learn from this? How can I grow? What can I change? Who can I help? And when you move forward doing the right thing, it will work out. I am now happily married. I found my husband 3 years ago, and through my adopted son, through foster care, who picked him out. It's incredible. And my life is more beautiful than I could have ever dreamed. So my talk for you is trusting in the Lord from Richard G. Scott, and submitting your will, and just know that I would have never learned the lessons. I would have never had my son. I would have never given other life. I would have never started my nonprofit or built my company if I hadn't gone through the darkest days and depths of despair.
Yeah. So I hope you don't mind me asking this too. Just one question for you, Brandy. I am familiar with what you do with your nonprofit, but would you share with the group what it is that you do? And the reason why I ask you that is because it just shows your compassion is amazing, and all the things you're accomplishing with it. It's when I think of you being in a place other than where you are now, it's incredible, and that's probably why you are here where you are because of what you went through, right? And your faith, like you said, trusting in the Lord.
Sometimes we don't know what we're capable of until we get through it. There's a quote that says it's only impossible until it's possible. And so right now, nonprofit is called Good Deed Revolution. And I actually almost lost my 14-year-old daughter to suicide 2 years ago. And so I shifted my nonprofit, and I focus so much on mental health and suicide prevention, because I'm one of the lucky ones that got a second chance with my daughter. I'm one of the lucky ones who her best friend was courageous enough to call 911, and we found her before it was too late. But we're losing people left and right, and they just don't have hope, and they don't feel purpose. And I'm just here to tell you, we all have a purpose. We're all sons and daughters of God. He loves us. And even when we feel so hopeless, he's always with us. And when we submit and say, what do I need to learn? how can I grow from this? And more importantly than that, I would say, how can I serve others? Because when we serve others and we're not focused on ourselves, it allows us to find purpose in that and not to feel so down and out on what we're doing.
So good. Brandy, thank you so much. You are welcome to stay as long as you can, but you also, I know you just wanted it to be fairly quick because you're in that meeting. So it's up
Well,
to
if
you.
you're recording it, I would love to look back on your site and hear the rest of the stories, because I do want to hear this. I'm just unfortunately in a class tonight, right now until 9. So I apologize for that, but you guys are beautiful. Thank you for having me. And I hope that this will be on your page, Sherry, so I can on my drive home tonight.
Yep, I'll leave it on there. I'll tag you in it if you want to.
And if any of you guys have any questions, or if you need anything, or if you want to find something to get involved with, let me know. Reach out to me online. I'm just Brandy Vega, and you'll see me on there.
And I
And
share the things that she's involved in. I share some of those things so you can look on. I do it in Thriving Singles Community and on the private page. Or
I was in singles community for 10 years, so believe me, I get it. I get it. There's hope. I promise.
Awesome. I love it. We need that. We need that encouragement, because all that we see is right now. So thank you.
There's light.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
So I know that Deanne had something to share. Would you like to go next, Deanne?
Sure, I would love to. So I'm Deanne Denneker, and I live in Utah, in northern Utah, and I am really excited for this opportunity. So thank you. A little bit about me. I grew up in southern Utah, and when my son was 3 years old, we moved north, and my son will be 28 in December. So I just have the one. But I have lots of other kids that love me. So I am really heavy into music and sharing music. From a very young age, I was performing vocally at the age of 2. And so it's been like a part of my life ever since. I just love people. I love interacting with people. Absolutely love, talking with new people, figuring out like who they are, what their drive is, what their vision is, just a lot about everybody. And so I just love people.
Yes, I attest to that. She does. Yeah.
So the talk that really hit me, and it hit me so hard that I was in tears. And that was President Nelson's talk on Sunday, the session. And the talk is entitled Peacemakers Needed. And the quote, there was a quote that he said in there. He said, brothers and sisters, we can literally change the world, one person and one interaction at a time. And I started crying when I heard him say that, because my life hasn't always been very kind to me. And there came a point in my life where I had to decide, am I going to be nice or am I going to be mean? And so this talk really hit me, because I just have such a love for everyone. And when I went through my second divorce, I got involved with a man shortly after that, and it was a very toxic relationship. And when I got out of that relationship, I was extremely broken. And it literally took a ton of bricks hitting me over the head to get me out of that relationship. And the whole time while I was going through that 3.5 years with this man, I made some choices, that didn't exactly align with my life path for the higher good. And I was really in self-beat up. And I thought, how could anyone love me? How could anyone accept me? Furthermore, how could God love me, right? How could God love me because of the things that I had done? And I was just really I hit rock bottom, and I was very sad, and I was really distraught, and I was really lost. And when I came to the point of when I needed to get out of that relationship, the Spirit said to me one night, "You need to leave this relationship, get out now." And at the time, I was really sick, and I was at his house at that time, and I didn't know how in the world I was going to do that. And I was like, how in the heck am I supposed to leave? Like, this is just, I'm so sick right now. I'm crawling to the bathroom, because I'm so sick. And it just kept coming more forceful. Leave now, get out now. And I was like, anytime I would try to fight it, it would just come more forcefully. And so I did manage to leave. And as I was driving in my car, there was a traffic jam on I-15 going down the freeway, and it was dead stopped. There were cars everywhere. Just, I can't remember if there was an accident or what, but it was just, the traffic was completely stopped. And I had been so sick that I had been throwing up. And so I could feel that I was getting sick again. And I was like, oh, no, please, no, not right now, not now, not now. And I ended up throwing up while I was driving. And I called a really good friend at that moment, and I told him, I said, I don't know why I'm calling you, but I really need a blessing. And I told him what was going on, and he said he would meet me at my house. And when I got to my house, he was there, and he had brought with him one of my prior bishops who had been trying to get in touch with me that I was avoiding. And I was like, could it be anyone else? Why him? Like, why this man that I've been trying to avoid? And we went in my house, and they proceeded, to prepare and to give me a blessing. And my old bishop took me by the hand, and he looked me square in the eye, and he said to me, there is nothing that you can ever do that would warrant the Savior from staying away from you. And he just looked at me, and he just put his arms around me and gave me the biggest hug. And he said, I want you to know that he's there for you. He is there with his arms outstretched still for you, and he's ready to welcome you back. And I got a very beautiful blessing that night. And both of them also shared with me that they could feel the evil leaving my body at that time. And this bishop made me promise that the next day I would go in and see my new bishop, and that I would counsel with him. And because I keep my word, I told him that I would. And I have such a testimony of that. And that was a turning point for me in my own life, because I had literally hit rock bottom. And I just have never looked back. Like, I remember that moment, and I remember, where I was at. And so President Nelson's talk really hit me hard, because I just love everybody. It doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter if they are a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, if they're Catholic, if they're Protestant, if it doesn't matter to me who they are. I just love them, because I've been there. I know what that feels like, to be in that self-judgment, to be in that space in your life of feeling like nobody loves me, nobody cares, you know. Furthermore, my thoughts, my things I'm saying to myself are just so damaging, you know, that we're our own worst judge, right?
Yes.
And so this is just the talk that hit me so hard because we do need to love everybody. I mean, it's so vital, you know.
You
I
know what?
mean,
Go
so
ahead.
important.
I'm gonna make try and get the link. I'm gonna share the link on there too. We were just talking about because it'll be fun to do these talks. Maybe I'll have to do it later because that's a little distracting for you guys. But unless
Yeah.
you want to, go to the Facebook page and share a copy. Oh, here we go. Share. Here we go. I'll do that. Okay, we'll do it that way. So, is there anyone else? Thank you so much, Deanna. I
Yeah.
really appreciate that. I did want to mention something. There are people who are not members of the church who might be listening. And so I just wanted to add, I just put that link there in case anyone wants to watch it or read it, but either way. If for anyone who might not understand what a blessing is, I wanted to just say just briefly what that is.
Okay.
And it's mentioned in the Bible that Melchizedek was given, the priesthood of Melchizedek, and that's what the men in the church, when they turn 19, they're given the Melchizedek priesthood, and so they can give us blessings. And I mean, everyone knows, I'm sure most people, Christians, know what blessings are and how that works. Lay their hands on your head and give you a blessing. And it is just the words come to them and the inspiration comes to them and the power. I am a witness of the power of blessings, these priesthood blessings, and of that power heals and it comforts. Like I love, it's the same power that they hold, the same power that God used to create the world, that Christ used to create the world, is the Melchizedek, the priesthood of God. The power to act in his name is what it is. So anyway, that I wanted to add that just in case there's anyone who haven't heard the term blessing. And I don't ask people like you, I don't ask their religion or if they understand, but I did want to make sure that we're letting people know what we're talking about. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything they want to add, or even you, Deanne, if you have anything more to add to that? Yes, Harold.
Okay. I don't know how many people remember, and you'll pardon my voice, I've had dental work done today, so I'm blah, 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 blah.
It's okay.
Anyway, I don't know how many people remember Joseph B. Worthland. I'm not sure when he passed away, probably 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, but I knew him on my mission, and we were in the same town when he was an assistant to the 12, and I'd have dinner at his place, and I loved him and his wife, and especially his daughters.
Of course.
But he gave a talk in 2008. I've always had a little bit of a weirdo, you know. I mean, when I taught in the MTC, I wore a skinny disco tie and wore platform shoes and drove a sports car. And even though a lot of the missionaries thought it was cool, I'd get the eye from a couple of the branch presidents there and stuff like that. I didn't care. But because I've had a little bit of I wouldn't say I've had a bad attitude, but I've always thought a lot of people are just wind-up dolls, And the people that I respect the most are the people that are themselves.
Yeah.
Because I truly think that the only way that you can be your best self is being yourself.
Yes.
So, and about in 2008, he gave a talk in general conference.
Do you want me to write this down here? Did you tell me other Worthland?
I can send you the link if you want.
Yeah, I'm gonna write it down, Joseph B. Worthland. And tell me the name. Remember the name of the talk?
The name of the talk is, let me see here. It's called Concerns for the One.
Awesome.
And it's April 2008.
Okay.
And I pretty much have this memorized because I've quoted it so many times. But in his talk, he says, some are lost because they're different. They feel as though they don't belong. Perhaps because they are different, they find themselves slipping away from the flock. They may look, act, think, and speak differently than those around them. And that sometimes causes them to assume they don't fit in. They conclude that they are not needed. Tied to this misconception is the erroneous belief that all members of the church should look, talk, and be alike. The Lord did not people the earth with a vibrant orchestra of personalities only to value the piccolos of the world. Every instrument is precious and adds to the complex beauty of the symphony. All of Heavenly Father's children are different in some degree, yet each has his own beautiful sound that adds depth and richness to the whole. I love that quote, not just because I'm a weirdo, but I just find that, like I said, I go back to people that, I'm not suggesting that we not hold our temper or that we not bite our tongue on occasion. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I am suggesting that whatever it is we love, do what you love.
Yeah.
Because some of the most flawed people that I have known in my life were so genuine that they were inspiring.
Yeah.
Be memorable. I'm 66. I'm not going to have a building named after me or a school or a whatever. I don't really care. But I do think that maybe there's a few people here, a few people there. Maybe I've made a little impact by not trying to walk lock, stock, and barrel with the crowd.
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to share. I just really
That's
I like
good.
that a lot.
Thank you, Harold, for interjecting that. That's good. Is there anyone else? So Eric had something to share as well. Are you ready, Eric, to share your story quote? Awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to. Okay, so Elder Ballard talked about relationships, and my wife and I, Syra and I, we got married 8 months ago today, and we are. What's that?
Happy anniversary!
Thank you. And we are just loving our relationship, and I think that he kind of talks about the work involved in a relationship, and so I'm going to read this quote here. This is from this conference. He said, "Nurturing these important relationships is a choice. A choice to be part of a family requires commitment, love, patience, communication, and forgiveness. There may be times when we disagree with another person, but we can do so without being disagreeable. In courtship and marriage, we don't fall in love or fall out of love as though we are objects being moved on a chessboard. We choose to love and sustain one another. We do the same in other family relationships and with friends who are like family to us." So, we in our relationship, we notice when there's some obstacle, something in between us. And then we work at that. We figure out what it is, we identify it, and we process through it, whether on our own or actually more common with us, we actually work through it together. And it's just amazing because we have not left our honeymoon. It's been 8 months and we are still on our honeymoon. We're just overjoyed. And we call it Fog 9 because it's Cloud 9, but on the ground.
Yeah.
And I just really am seeing, in this new relationship and the focus that we both have on that and on removing obstacles, that it's not that it's not that, life settles in and you start to get on each other's nerves. It's not that you get old or it gets old being together. There's things that sneak in, sometimes often unnoticed, little frustrations, little irks, little things you disagree about and don't resolve. You don't have to agree on everything. That's not the problem. It's noticing when it feels like there's an obstacle between you, and then removing that. And usually it's tied to some sort of expectation. And in all the areas, there's the spiritual, the intellectual, the physical, the emotional, and you can have obstacles in any of those. But it's just amazing. I'm truly in awe at what's possible as you work through those things. And just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Eric. Is Syra there with you?
She's not. She's in the other room. She's had a rough day. We went to the oncologist today, and and we're just dealing with some things there. But so she's taking a nap.
Yes, Syra has cancer. In case anyone hasn't heard, or anyone doesn't know, Syra, they've been married for 8 months, and just after a month, was it a month?
Yeah, like 1 month after. Yeah.
So that's the challenge that they're dealing with, and they are just so full of faith and optimism and love and hope for each other. It has got to be the hardest challenge, I would think, in a marriage and a relationship in life, is to deal with that and still try to stay positive and happy and full of faith. But yeah, the paths, they definitely do that.
Thank you. Yeah, but last night we were talking to a person, a life coach, and Syra's on the call too, and she was talking about how she loves her life. So like she's happier than she has ever been. And that's with having cancer. Right. So trials don't have to steal our joy.
Right.
We can have that peace and joy in the midst of, I believe, anything, frankly.
Oh, I love it. Awesome. You guys are an awesome couple.
They are so awesome.
So Michael is also on my agenda, not on like a written formal agenda. Did you want to share something, Michael? Still?
Sure. The talk that I really liked was the second talk in the morning session, and it's by President Camille Johnson. She's an Early Society presidency, and she talked about the weight of things in our life, like a backpack full of rocks, and how we tend to want to carry those things, whether it's the weight of our own sin or whether it's the weight of things that have happened against us or just trials of being human, and that there's that tendency to want to just carry that burden on ourselves, to kind of live in that burden, live in and just, even when we have this offering, this opportunity from the Savior, which is a constant offering. It's not like something that's just given and taken away and maybe in the future given again. It's a constant thing of him offering to take that load from us. We want to carry it for various different reasons. I was listening to that. I just had it playing. I was quasi focusing on conference, and just when it came on, it hit me like she'd say a sentence or two and bam, I was overwhelmed by these waves of emotion, and I started just crying. And it wasn't like a oh, that's really, and then just kind of it was just like a massive, and it just wave after wave of, and again, I didn't even know what it was in there that she was, I wouldn't even pick out words or sentences that were bringing that on. It just was kind of happening. And it was really intense. And I look back, and I know to an extent we're all guilty of doing this in our life. We're all guilty of holding on to things that weigh us down and that can cause, spiritual, emotional, even physical pain. In my life, one experience that, so I am in recovery from opioid addiction, and that's something, it's taken me to some places I honestly never thought that I would go. When I was in the midst of this, one thing that I did is I got in a really bad spot. I lost my job. I was financially insolvent. And in order to kind of stay alive, and to support, the habits that I had created for myself, and I decided that I was going to commit a crime to do it. And this is my life where I'm pretty much a straight arrow. I was, for most of it, just a pretty straight arrow, almost to the stick in the mud type thing, people annoying. And so I did, and I actually committed insurance fraud, and I got quite a bit of money out of it. And well, let me back up. So when I was doing this, I was making this plan. I said, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna get the benefits of it, and then I'm gonna spend it, do some things, and then I was gonna end my own life. That was my plan. Obviously, that didn't come to fruition. But what it did happen is I did it, and then I got away with it completely. Just nobody realized that there was any fraud or anything like that. And then I went back, but I obviously stayed alive, and then I didn't. I kind of still went back. Things worked out, and I kind of continued my life, but it was not a very nice life. And then finally, a couple of years later, I started on my path to recovery. I got clean, and after that, pretty soon, I remembered what I had done, because I'd totally forgotten about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I did this thing, and I'm trying to go through the path of repentance and making amends, and I thought to myself, I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to get the money that I made. I'm going to get with interest. I'm going to donate it to the company's charity. I'm going to, not live a living amends, which is not doing it again. And then if there's a balance, I'm going to take care of it at the judgment bar, at the end of my life, when also it's like, okay, if I didn't do this enough, and it must have been like that day or the next day, I was, I looked at myself in the mirror, and I felt impression, heard that voice of like, absolutely not. You will take care of this, and you will do it like now. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I called the office of the insurance commissioner in Olympia, and I was crying. I was on the phone. I was like shaking, and I said, I did this thing, and I need to take care of it. And I committed this crime. And so they had no idea that anything was wrong. And so they didn't know what to do, actually, because I guess that never happens. And so it took like a year for them to go through all these process of figuring out how to like move forward the charges and stuff, and because there's just a lot of the circumstances. And I looked it up after I called them, and I was trying to figure out like what's the worst could happen. And I was looking like 5 years in prison. It's like the worst charges I could find on like a federal level. But I was like, no, I did the right thing, and this is something I definitely know Heavenly Father wanted me to do. And so I did it. And when I was interviewed, say interviewed, it is a interrogation, but they were really good about it. So where they just I told them everything, left no detail sparing, so that I knew that there was no way I could get out of it, because I didn't want to ever have that doubt, and I never actually did. It was always this is in 2017, so 6 years, I never doubted, and that it was the right thing. And so, and not even just that, but that it would work for my good. And so what ended up happening is, in lieu of, they asked me in the interview, the investigators, they said, you know, why did you do this? And I told them my past. I was a paramedic, and that this and that, and things that happened, and I'd gotten into pills, and that was, you know, a thing. And they expressed actually quite a bit of compassion. And because of that, because of those reasonings behind it, I was able to go into instead of criminal court where I'm facing these charges and jail time. And it wasn't the 5 years, it was like 30 days because I don't have any history. It wasn't a violent crime, you know, nothing like that. So, but the prosecutor's still going for the max. And, but I was given the opportunity to go through this drug court program, which is basically they set the charges aside. Like you agree that you're guilty of them, you plead guilty basically, and well, not really, but you confess that you're guilty, and then they let you go through this, and it's anywhere from 18 months to 2 years depending on the county. This program, it's like a probation, but it's far more intense. They own your life.